Okay. Should I start, Maureen? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, Tom, you can go ahead.
Okay. Take attendance. Emma,
Here.
Jack Gardner, you're on mute.
You hear me now?
Yep. And Blair? Okay, everyone's here. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
Sorry, Blair, did you say yeah?
All in
No, sorry,
favor?
my connection cut out. Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Emma?
Aye.
Okay, this meeting is being audio and video recorded. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the 2021 meeting schedule?
So moved.
Seconded?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Tom?
Aye.
Jack?
Aye.
Emma?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Okay, so Vince, we'll turn it over to you. Coastal Resiliency Coordinator, coastal impacts at Children's and Jetty's beaches.
Thank you very much, Tom. Are you okay to share my screen, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I do share my screen, I'm just going to introduce myself and have a very quick set of apologies. I'm Vince Murphy. I'm the Coastal Resilience Coordinator for the town of Nantucket. I'm based in the Natural Resources Department. There's a CONCOM meeting on at my office at the exact same time, and it means I've had to come home to do this presentation. That means I'm locked out of the town system in some ways, so that means I can't access some of the maps I wanted to present here, and I can only apologize on that front, but I can still give a pretty good description of some of the potential impacts to Jetty's Beach and Children's Beach. So the town of Nantucket engaged consultants called Arcadis with sub-consultants Stoss, One Architecture, and the Craig Group. Everyone can see this?
Yes.
Thank you. And they are now undertaking a coastal resilience plan for the town. That plan started in its research phase last September. It's due for completion and delivery this coming September. So roughly speaking, we're about halfway through. This is designed to be a self-guided virtual meeting. So there's plenty, this is to be given by anyone. And this is one of my new toys and one of the new engagement strategies that has come up for the Coastal Resilience Plan. There are slides in this that are not relevant, so I am going to skip some. So this presentation is designed to help answer some really basic questions about what the Coastal Resilience Plan is, understanding risk and understanding what we mean by resilience and how we can plan to help Nantucket become more resilient. And then basically everything else is designed to work with you in mind, and we need public information and public feedback. Almost every talk that we do about the Coastal Resilience Plan, we start with this one simple mission statement. And if you don't mind, I can read this. The Coastal Resilience Plan draws on the cherished, built and natural heritage of Nantucket to create a community-supported roadmap to implementation for a series of layered flood control and adaptation approaches that lessen the losses from storm surge to help the community adapt to rising sea and eroding coastlines. In coordination with the ongoing adaptation and sustainability initiatives, the plan addresses the whole island and community with while respecting the unique characteristics of each neighbourhood. Driven by the inclusive and equitable agreement of all, the plan aspires to create social and environmental and economic benefits and value to everyone who will share in the Nantucket future. So trying to keep this as inclusive as possible. What is a coastal resilience plan? Effectively, we have three big problems on Nantucket. Most are things people know about. Everyone knows that erosion happens, and everyone knows that we get coastal flooding during a storm. The next big thing coming down the track is sea level rise. In 1965, NOAA put a sea level rise, a tide buoy in Nantucket Harbour. It's attached to Steamboat Wharf. And from 65 up until the end of 2019, it recorded 8 inches of sea level rise. Biggest thing to know about sea level rise is it's not linear, it's exponential. So by the end of the century, we're looking at some pretty high figures in terms of feet. In the next 80 years, we could be looking at around 6 to 8 feet of sea level rise potentially. There are some basic principles to take into account. We look at having an inclusive plan and get as much community engagement as possible. Bringing in, excuse me, honoring community heritage and identity through adaptation, addressing resilience at municipal scale, and bringing commitment to implementation. So it's find out what the problem is first, then implement it. These are the basic groups involved. Arcadis are the lead consultants working with sub-consultants, and to also work with another committee within the town, the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee, and town staff, including myself. Mary Longacre is chair of the Coastal Resilience Advisory Committee, a committee of 9, 6 members from various island committees, groups, and organizations, including a large landowning group, and 3 members are at large. So it's going to build on information that the town already has. It's not going to be a standalone plan as such. It's going to build on what we already know. We already have a hazard mitigation plan. We already have a coastal strategies document. This year, there are 3 different plans being undertaken. The Coastal Resilience Plan, which I'm here to talk about today. Separately to that, the town is also undertaking a project called Resilient Nantucket Designs for Adaptation to look at historic buildings and the historic landmark district that the island has. And separately, Remain Nantucket are undertaking a project called Envision Resilience. That is outside of the town, but we are aiding as partners. I'm kind of going quickly. If people do want to stop me at any point to ask questions, I don't mind. I'm just being conscious of time. One of the big things we have to understand is risk. What are the risks that Nantucket faces? So we know some of them. We can quite easily understand some of them because we see them. They're physical. We have coastal storms that bring flooding. Easy Street, Washington Street, at the bottom of Broad Street, Easton Street, are areas we know flood regularly once it rains, and we get coastal storms and tide stacking. Erosion we see regularly. We've all noticed how bluffs retreat and beaches get smaller. The more insidious problem is sea level rise. It's going to exacerbate both of those. It's going to make erosion and storm surge worse over time. But because it's so incremental, and has been so far, it's kind of hard to gauge. But when you look at projections and scenarios going forward that show by 2070, we could have 4 feet of sea level rise already, and you think that that's only 50 years from now, that's a pretty exponential impact. As I was saying, coastal risk is not new. We know some of these things, and we know the areas that flood. It's worth noting that in the last few years, in 2018, in this time, it was February 2018, we had 3 storms in 3 weekends. Winter storms Riley and Grayson were the 2 worst that brought serious flooding. Winter storm Grayson had the exact same effects on Nantucket in terms of coastal flooding impacts as I'm told as the perfect storm, the no-name storm in 1991. That brought equal amount of flooding, but not equal amount of damage because the town has been quite developed since and developed with FEMA flood standards. So there are already steps being taken to improve how the town deals with flooding. So this is Nantucket as we see it today. If we were to get a major storm, these are the areas that typically flood. I know some of them are ponds, but that just means wash over from the ocean into a pond. The downtown area has the potential to flood quite significantly in a major storm. Madaket area is also prone to quite substantial flooding, as we know. So we understand what might flood today. And as I was saying, these are the equivalent of Storm Grayson and the no-name storm. But in 2070, once we see a few feet of sea level rise, what's that going to do to the island? That's going to make the areas that flood higher up. So we could see additional flooding and additional impacts through sea level rise, and that's only in 50 years. Erosion is exacerbated by sea level rise. So if you imagine that at the moment we're already seeing erosion, and in parts of Madaket we can see as much as 12 feet of erosion in a year. And now in the future, with additional height of water, that pushes water further inland or further up a bank that can cause more erosion. So these are the kind of things we have to think about going forward. How do we live with water? How can we think about climate change, and how can we add a sense of urgency so that we can act on these things? In the context of risk, it's increasing and evolving. Our resilience is our ability to change, adapt, and respond. And it has effectively 5 points to it. And it's the obvious things. Physical, we need some physical infrastructure. Social, we need people to understand and be educated to some degree as to what to expect into the future. We need to have institutional and government understanding of how to respond and have more policies to understand what to do about sea level rise. Economic stability is a part of it in order to be able to understand how that we can plan appropriately and have adequate finances in order to be able to undertake projects to deal with these things. And obviously environmental. These are all environmental factors, but we need to understand how we can not disrupt environmental processes and continue to have, say, shellfish in the harbour and nice upland areas in order to not disrupt our ecosystem. So I'm just going to stop there. I wish that I had what I had planned for this section. The next part I was going to show Children's Beach and Jetty's Beach and what they're going to look like. It's quite fair to say that they're at very low elevations. As little as about 2.5 to 3 feet of sea level rise could see those areas regularly covered at high tide on a regular day. That's out without storms. So we're looking at roughly in the 2060, 2070 timeframe that Jetty's Beach and Children's Beach, which is marginally higher, might start suffering the true ill effects of sea level rise. So the question becomes, what can we start to do now? How can we plan appropriately? How can Parks and Recreation Commission give advice as to what we should do with those areas in order to start looking at making those areas more resilient? Does it involve changing the elevation of where the playgrounds are? Does it involve doing something to the foreshore area to make those to keep out the impacts? And my favorite way of looking at these things isn't looking at traditional hard infrastructure, putting in a levee or a berm or a seawall. The thing that I tend to talk about more is using green infrastructure. Could we build a dune system? Can we vegetate it? Could we create a wetland in front of it? Wetlands are one of the best ways of absorbing energy from waves coming in. And believe it or not, wetlands actually hold water out. Water flows very slowly through wetlands. At that point, I could only open it up to the Commission for questions. What would people like to see?
Thank you so much, Vince. That was awesome. I definitely like the idea of the green, using plants, using wetlands, what we know from nature works. And it'll be interesting to see how that can work at some of the spots that Parks and Rec has some oversight over. So thank you.
Yeah, I like the presentation too. It's definitely a big problem on Nantucket. That's no secret to the people on this call. You know, Vince, I don't know if you've been out to Tom Nevers, but every time I go out there, that's where we have our home. It seems like, 3 or 4 feet a month or more coming off of that cliff. I don't know if you've had a chance to go out there, but I think one major event, one good, blow off the ocean will drastically affect the cliff structure out there. So you may want to swing out there at some point. Um, it's going away at 5, 6 feet at a chunk. And I've been out there and seen it coming down in real time. You know how it just kind of gradually comes down. I'm sure you've seen that, but uh, I don't envy your job at all. I don't know how I don't know how we're gonna fix it. I really don't. We're 30 miles out in the ocean, and the wind out on Nantucket is constant, and the rain flow, the water flow sometimes goes from the parking lots out towards the water, and you got the water coming in. Good luck to you. And anything, in my opinion, anything the parks can do to help you, we'll do what we can.
Appreciate that. Thank you very, very much, Tom. So I should probably have given a little bit of my background by way of introduction. I've only been on Ireland about five and a half years. Obviously, I'm Irish. I got my American citizenship about 2 years ago. Most of that time I've been here. I spent a brief bit of time in Arizona, but I do know Tom Nevers extremely well. In fact, sorry to say it, it's one of my least productive fishing areas, so that's one of the reasons why I go there a little bit less. But I go there an awful lot because my kids like that playground. So that area is a bit of a challenge. Anything in the South Shore, in fact, is a bit of a challenge. It's a very different wave velocity area to Nantucket Harbour, which has got obviously sheltered effects from Nantucket Island itself and from the Cape being to the north. So we don't get quite the same wave heights within Nantucket Sound. South of Nantucket and east, the wave energy there is obviously an awful lot higher. But what can you do to either dissipate or break up wave energy without changing the ecosystem is one way to look at it. So we know that we have great shoals south of the island. Is there the potential to have small shoals being artificially created, just build up a bank of sand in an area that could then dissipate wave energy in certain areas and in staggered intervals to stop the same level of destructive waves? Hardening the bluffs in that area, it's not going to be that much of an option. But what can we do I'm not sure that we can protect bluffs in perpetuity, but we can certainly bring 7-8 feet of erosion per year down to 1 or 2 feet per year by putting in some green infrastructure. It will take planting up the bluff face, having a hell of a lot of vegetation and changing the vegetation structure so that it's things with very large, very deep roots that hold on to sand and soil and stop those chunks falling down. There's also the potential for building out the beach in front of an area like that and doing a beach nourishment project. So effectively you're moving the water back a marginal amount, maybe 30, 50 feet of sand will stop the wave run of getting to the end, to the base of the bluff, and then you cut down on the amount of erosion. There are strategies you can do, but I must say, the things that I've just been suggesting, they are not small price tags.
No. And my comment, the comment I made, I didn't make it looking for a solution because quite honestly, the good Lord is going to decide what to do out there. Okay. I don't think there's anything you can do. So the point I was trying to make, it's more of and Blair and I actually discussed this. It's almost a hazard out there right now. The next time you're out there, Vince, look at that cliff. It comes right up to the road, and one good blow will take out that road. And I don't think there's anything you can do about the waves. I really don't, because the wind and the waves out there in the winter or during any storm, they can go up to 20 feet. They're huge. So I don't think there's anything you can do to stop that. It's more of a planning for the future, because in the end, you're going to end up with a beach out there. There's not going to be any cliff. And
Appreciate
if,
that point. My job is resilience, so making things
Yeah.
last longer, not protect
Yeah.
or protecting in perpetuity. I can't do that.
well, as you said in your
last a bit longer.
comment, yeah, as you said in your comment, you're taking on the Atlantic Ocean. You're not taking on the Nantucket Sound.
Yeah.
It's sort of like Connemara.
Oh, I know Connemara all too well. Lived there for a
That's what
while.
you're dealing with. You're dealing with Galway.
So I'm from Cork in the south, but I lived in Connemara in the west of Ireland.
Yeah, I know the area.
Both
And the
areas
waves
take a
out there
hell
are
of a-
like, the waves in Connemara are the same as they are in Tom Nevis.
So in terms of what might be done for other areas, so for say something like Children's Beach or Jetties, does anyone have any thoughts or concerns for those areas, and any suggestions along the lines of green infrastructure or combination of a hybrid type of say traditional infrastructure with a green infrastructure element?
Go ahead, Jack. You had your hand up?
Yes, for the jetties and Children's Beach, both of those areas, we need to get going soon. I think we ought to start off by raising those buildings, both of them about 3 feet. And that'll buy us another 10 or 15 years. And right now, the selectmen are looking into doing work at the jetties. So really, before any work is done on that building, we should raise it first. We did raise it a few years ago when we did it ourselves. Got moved back about 50 feet. And we raised it at the time, but it needs to be done again.
So my understanding is that the building at Jetties is it is a town building, but is that under the Parks and Rec? I thought it was under the DPW.
It is under DPW now, right? Yes, but
Okay.
still, it was Park and Rec at the time.
Okay. So I've been talking with DPW director about that building, Rob McNeil. He's quite interested in it, and you might have seen Select Board last night where he was talking about the future of that building.
Right.
So yeah, it's a topic certainly of concern, and something that Rob and others, including myself and others looking at hazard mitigation, are thinking about.
That's why I think if they'd raise it 2 or 3 feet now, it would buy you 10 or 15 years. All we can do is Park and Rec is recommend.
Well, to Emma's point, I second what Emma said about anything you can do with vegetation is the way to go. You know, nobody wants to look at a cement wall anywhere, or a brick wall, or a big berm. If seagrass and that type of stuff can get it done, you know, with a modest sand dune, that's probably the best way. The bottom line is we're 30 miles out in the ocean, whether you're on the sound side or the ocean side.
Right, with the beaches there at Children's and at Jetties, both of those, we could do a little wetland to slow the water down. It's coming in there. Slow it down as well as raise the building.
Yep. I'm sorry, there's tremendous feedback, and I think it might be Blair. Can you mute? Is that possible?
Is that me?
I think so. I'm just having trouble hearing Jack and Tom.
Oh, sorry.
So I've been looking at other things in the area around jetties as well, and around Children's Beach. One of the questions that's come up about jetties in particular is about the level of the road. And one of the things that I've been trying to look into in relation to the Wetland Protection Act, the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 91 issues is, can we raise the level of the road and increase the level of the parking lot at the end of the road? The purpose would be to keep pace with sea level rise. If you could go up in increments about every 10 to 20 years to, beg your pardon, to keep pace with sea level rise, that would be one way to keep the area accessible. The downside of that, and this is one of the things that I was hoping to understand from this commission, is what that might do to the children's playground area, that facility there, which would end up eventually after 40 to 60 years being below the level of the road. that would have to be increased in height as well to keep pace with it. Is that something that the commission would consider?
You'd have to raise that boat ramp as well. That boat ramp needs to be raised to keep that water from coming. The water's coming up right up the boat ramp and down the road. And that way, if you raise that boat ramp, it's going to stop that water from getting out into the road.
Again, I think the boat ramp is one of the DPW responsibilities.
Right, it is.
Yeah. So I've been looking at that one as well. I'm looking at pretty much anything in the harbour front, to be perfectly honest, and trying to understand what might be done in the future. And with the boat ramp where it is in its current position, and if you look at sea level rise projections in as little as 40 years, that might be totally useless, and that whole area could be inundated at most every high tide. So the question becomes, what do you do? I think at that point, if the Wetland Protection Act would allow it, which is a bit of a trick at the moment, I have to say, you'd have to increase the height of Harbourview Way and the level of the boat ramp to match it, so that it could still be a usable area for waterfront access to maintain a working waterfront effectively. But what would that do for the level of the play area to the south of it at the Children's Beach area, that large grassy lawn area? That is at the kind of upper end of the current flood zone, but as sea level rise continues and pushes flood zones higher up, we could see water regularly getting as far as the bandstand. So the question becomes, what can be done with that area? Do we have to put a levee system in front of it, or an earthen berm, if you will, and vegetate that and make that part of a nice landscaped area?
Could be raised up. You've got a nice long bulkhead going the whole length of the property there. And that could be raised up when you raise your boat ramp. And raise the whole thing at once, it's going to hold water back.
Yeah, that could work. I'm just trying to find out if that would mean that you'd end up getting harbour front erosion. The beach would then be submerged and lost. Is that a consideration for this commission?
You would lose the beach here as the tide starts going up, because the water on rough storms gets all the way up to the bulkheads.
Yes, it does. So in order to maintain it, would it be, is there a potential for a dune system in that area? Would that be something that the commission would entertain? That would help alleviate some of the flooding issues, potentially stop water getting further in the direction of the bandstand. But the question is, that's not a large beach. It's what would people say, about 100 yards thereabouts. The sand requirement to make a dune system there is actually pretty small by comparison to other areas. So that's more doable than it would be, say, on the South Shore, obviously.
Some of that plastic seaweed that they use in the water just in front of the beach, that helps slow the water down that's coming into the beach. Have you looked into that at all? Have you seen that any place?
Not that one in particular. What we did look at is something that's currently being investigated and being permitted for Sacajah Pond, which is a reef ball system, and it has the same problems as any artificial seaweed system would have. It would have to be anchored to something and be on the bottom. So that has issues when you start thinking about swimming and other navigation within that channel, boats and people moving within the foreshore and intertidal zone and the Bethnic zone, and what that might do. You don't want kids cutting their feet.
Back years ago, we were looking into something like that for Great Point Light, just before we lost Great Point Light in '79, I think.
So Vince, it would definitely be a one or the other type of situation, whether you can either have beach or you could have the vegetation to stop or to slow down the erosion. But having them in the same site would cause problems, like at Sacajah, you said, because it would be a hazard to the swimmers or that kind of thing, or kayakers. Yeah,
that's pretty much it. So doing things within the water, within the harbour area in a high traffic zone is problematic. In a very, very low traffic zone, like the edge of Sacajah Pond where the road meets the pond, less of an issue. But when you've got a high traffic area, it's more of a problem. But the other thing is, in a high traffic area like Children's Beach, it's actually worth doing something with a dune system or a tiered system, have a dune system and something else behind it in order to try and create as much resilience as you can. Doing something in the water there is difficult, I have to say. That is very problematic. They looked at something like that for Washington Street area by Washington Street Extension, by where it meets Francis Street. And the amount of foot traffic there is large, so it couldn't be done.
That's why I think maybe raising that bulkhead for children would help a lot. You keep that water from coming up over into the lawn area.
And would most of the mitigation be like a dual system as opposed to just a single? You know, you would have sand and vegetation, or usually not just one or the other. It would be a variety of items.
I think it'd be a combination, yeah.
Combination.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that certainly is an extremely good way to go. So putting in an artificial dune, say at the base of the bulkhead, that brought the level of the beach there up 5-10 feet for the sake of argument, it would obstruct views. That's one of the downsides. The upside is that in a storm event, that would help that area be more resilient. Adding vegetation to it means that you'd have beach grass and other native plant species on that dune. It would hold the sand in place and you wouldn't have to do nourishment quite as frequently to maintain that artificial dune. That would be one of the ways to definitely go to reduce your costs and reduce the amount of times that you have to go to work in an area like that.
I think that sounds like a feasible plan. And I'd be on board too with, you know, anything to kind of preserve the look, obviously at that location, you know, protecting the assets that are there. Because obviously that's, you know, as you said, Vince, a high traffic area. You have a lot of families, children that, you know, access that area there. And I think that, you know, having something that's going to provide, you know, pleasing or natural aesthetic would definitely be the best solution. But yeah, I think that sounds like a really good plan. And, you know, speaking on behalf of myself, not the commission as a whole, but that's something that I would certainly support.
Yeah, so Vince, is there a motion you're expecting us to make tonight, or is this just information?
Yeah, more or less, this is just information. So where
Okay.
we are with the Coast Resilience Plan is they are undertaking the risk assessment phase at the moment. So they're understanding the level of risk and the level of risk for the next 80 years. So trying to understand what a storm in 2070, 2100 would look like and what kind of flooding that might bring, and how to start planning appropriately now for that at the moment. So when it comes to generating ideas, we're trying to collect opinions from interest groups and stakeholders such as yourselves who oversee property within these areas. So there's another aspect to try and consider and understand as well. There's going to be an awful lot of potential ideas floated for the waterfront. So it's fair to say that either side, there are neighbors. Yacht Club is on the other side as far as I remember. So how are they going to make their property more resilient as well? And how can that tie up with the, say, children's beach areas so that there can be no gaps in infrastructure or any developments that go forward, so that we could have more protection behind it. So that's another thing to try and understand as well. So this is all just ideas at the moment. The need for emotion, unless you want to put forward a resolution to say that this would be one of your preferred options, but that's not necessary either, because I can just take that straight to the consultants as is and play it and propose it as an idea.
Yeah, so didn't mean to cut you short, but just to piggyback on what Blair said and what Emma alluded to is, you know, I see the role of this commission as first and foremost to protect the assets of the Parks Commission, first and foremost. And, you know, jetties and Children's Beach are very, very important to the recreation of the island. But not only that, they're important to the summer folks, and the summer business generates a lot of revenue for the town and all the businesses surrounding it. So, you know, jetties is very popular. Children's Beach is important, small though it may be, but it's important. So protecting those assets are, very important to me, and I think I speak to everyone else, and making sure that they're saved in perpetuity without putting up a cement wall, as you said. Uh, So what I'm trying to say is formulate a motion that you'd like us to make at some point in the future, and come back and we'll have a quick discussion on it and do what we have to do. Does that sound reasonable, Blair, Emma, and Jack?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a note to add. Just hearing about this gets me thinking kind of save versus retreat, and just to keep in mind in terms of our input, I do think it is important to have children's as a green space in town, because we're losing green space in town, and also the playground. We have a lot of really lovely playgrounds outside of town, but not as many in town. So I don't necessarily think it needs that playgrounds need to be at the same locations where they are at Jetty's and Children's, but something that is accessible to people in the downtown core. So I would just add that as a note for how parks might play into that planning.
Noted. Thank you very much. Can I ask one more question before I leave? If that's okay, please, Tom.
You may, absolutely.
This will be my last. So one of the more interesting things when we talk to the various boards, committees and commissions, when we've been trying to gather feedback, there's always one question I like to ask. Is there any one thing or anything in particular you don't want to see, say, at these beaches or in the area of your personal interest at these beaches, at these playgrounds? Is there anything that's off the table? Is there anything you don't want? You don't want a wall? Is one of the things I heard early. Anything else?
I want everybody to weigh in on this. And it's just my personal. Maintaining the aesthetics is very important for Nantucket, right? No matter where you are. And, that's key. You don't want to lose that look that's already down there. Jetty's is a great spot. It's Children's Beach is a great spot. So we have to try to the best we can preserve the aesthetics. And I think it was Blair that mentioned, based upon the point you made, Vince, go with the green approach as opposed to the concrete approach.
I agree.
Likewise.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Just thinking about it for a moment, I can't think of anything personally that I wouldn't want to see, but again, to my point, like what I would want to see is maintaining some green space and maintaining some playgrounds.
Thank you so very much. And thank you so very much for so much time.
Thank you, Vince. That was very informative. Thanks for taking the time to share with us.
Excuse me, Vince, before you leave, do you have another scheduled event where you'll be going over more information for the public? Do you have that lined up? Is that June?
So we've already had one public engagement event that was in January. We're looking at one possibly for the last week of May, first week of June. It's not scheduled yet. And I am absolutely delighted to pass along information to Maureen, who can keep this commission informed.
Thank you. We'd appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Marina, you're going to tell us what 2021 is going to look like?
I hope I know. Hi, everyone. Marina Zvonik. I'm Town of Nantucket events coordinator, and I'll just give update what we're looking into summer 2021. So it looks like summer is gonna look different than we had last year. It will be more open and less restricted than the last summer, but still it's not gonna look like it was before in 2019. As you know, we have new guidance for gatherings. On March 22nd, we have new limits for public venues and event spaces and public settings. It's going to be 100 people indoors and 150 people outdoors. So Children's Beach as a park, it will be subject to this new gathering limits. For private residents, we're still looking into 10 people indoors and 25 people outdoors. And of course, all those like guidelines, it's subject to public health data. So once governor announces new gatherings limits, we start getting a lot of requests from people, different requests from nonprofits. Everyone is ready to open and start planning events. So we're still really careful with permitting events. We actually didn't open our permit application process. Some of the big events, like 250 events, they usually require police details. And at this point, we're gonna have really limited resources this summer. So most likely we're not gonna be able to provide police details for the big events. Also, on March 22nd, we're gonna move into phase 4, step 1, but still like big events such as festivals, fairs, road races, they're not allowed until we move further into step 2 of phase 4. And we've been in touch with state just to get some clarifications, and we were advised like promotion events like road races, festivals, and fairs still not allowed. So this is what we're looking into. And last year, select board allowed small activities and public events at Children's Beach, while all other town-owned properties like Nobody Beach, Fisherman's Beach, Malcolm Beach, they restricted any kind of events. So typically we issue a lot of beach permits for catered events, and last year it was restricted because we wanted to keep public beaches open to the public, just give more space. And any kind of a food service provider and caterers, they have to follow restaurant guidelines, and it's kind of hard to follow that guidelines on a public beach. So right now, if we get any request for events, and if event organizers considering to have food trucks or any kind of food service provider, they still have to follow restaurant guidelines. And the restaurant guidelines right now, food service has to be only to seated guests. So like mingling and eating something while you're standing is still not allowed. And all the tables have to be 6 feet apart. And there's still limit max 6 people per table, and it has to be 90 minutes restriction on food service at a table. So also we have gathering orders that set limits how many people allowed at the event, but at the same time, there is sector specific protocols. Like I mentioned, food service providers have to follow restaurant guidelines. And if events considering to have some kind of entertainment, so entertainment, they would have to follow their sector specific protocols for performer venues and theaters. I don't have a lot of requests for Children's Beach. I only heard from Bettina. She wants to continue teaching yoga on a bandstand. I think she did it last year, and she was cleared by health department. They allowed her to teach as long as she was in compliance with all the state guidelines. Her class was limited to 10 people. They were supposed to wear a mask, and they had to keep a distance between yoga mats. I think it was 6 feet. Marjorie Trott is also considering to provide her classes again this summer. Last year, she didn't do it because it's kind of hard with kids classes because kids have to be 6 feet apart, and still there should be no physical contact with children. So she's kind of revisiting her program, and she is interested to continue teaching her classes, but she didn't give me her schedule, and she didn't tell me exact start dates and end dates.
I've got a couple of cars. Which one is involved?
Sorry,
Jack,
can I continue?
Jack,
you need to mute.
Zoom, please.
I'm in the middle of a meeting right now. I can't really go on.
Jack, can you mute?
If you could call me back in about a half hour, I can probably help you out.
Thanks, Marina.
So I know like we get a lot of requests from yoga instructors and fitness instructors. They all asking us if they can start teaching something at Children's Beach, but commercial activities is really limited at Children's Beach. I know like a couple years ago, select board approved what is allowed at public beaches, and Children's Beach was only like low impact commercial activities such as yoga. I don't know, because I guess Bettina and Marjorie have been teaching classes at the bandstand for like 20 plus years. And all the activities at Children's Beach, they have to be open to the public. So they're not supposed to block access to the beach or to the park. So it has to be pretty much community event. Okay, any questions?
No, I agree with that policy. Speaking for myself, is that, you know, it's a small area, and it could easily be taking over. It can easily be taken over by folks for all the right intentions and purposes to run a whole assortment of classes and make it more difficult for families just to go down there and relax. So it's a small space, but it's a very nice space, and it's perfect to do a whole bunch of different things. There's no question about it. So it has to be managed properly.
Just
And always,
Sorry.
sorry, Emma, I was just gonna say, any kind of like years ago, we were told if it's some kind of a repetitive event, it doesn't not need to go to the Park and Rec Commission for review as long as there are no changes. And if it's some kind of new community activity, we would always bring it to the Park and Rec Commission for review.
I just wanted to confirm that the events usually go to you first before coming to us. So like would we need to keep tabs on what phase we're in and make sure that the event is in compliance with that?
No, I usually ask all the different activities, events come to me first because we would know what step we are and what is allowed. And we look from like licensing perspective, if it even possible to do at the Children's Beach, if they're gonna meet all the requirements. If it looks like it's doable, we would ask them to go to the Park and Rec Commission.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Marina. I know you said that triathlons weren't going to happen in this phase or any sort of like running event. Do you anticipate that happening at any point this summer? I know it's contingent on when. Go ahead, sorry.
It's contingent on a state because it's a road race, and the triathlon, it's such a big event. It usually has up to 708 people participating, and they usually ask us to provide about 20 police details, and this is the issue. We're not going to have enough resources to support that event because we close a lot of roads for this event. And they've been in touch with us a couple months ago, but right now it looks like it's not doable. We still have to wait for the state to allow road races to happen. I talked to like Nantucket Conservation Foundation today. They're considering to do their road race for open space, but it's gonna be hybrid race. People can do it at any place, anywhere. It's not like organized event at the Cranberry Box. It's still different, like it's a hybrid virtual event.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Marina, oh, go ahead.
I actually want to hear your feedback about some kind of activity that Summer Street Church reached out to us, and they asked if they can have worship service at Children's Beach on Sundays. And I don't know if in the past you allowed churches to do something at Children's Beach.
What time of day?
No, Marina, that would definitely have to be an agenda item with more coverage, because that could be a contentious. You know, I
Okay.
think there could be some opinions on that, but if we wanted to look at it, I think it's April 8th, we
Okay.
could address it more specifically then. And
Okay,
if they
sounds
could
good.
provide something more in writing with times, anticipated number of people, if you could get a little more information, but that would
Mhm.
definitely have to be an item.
Okay, any other questions?
I think Janet has a comment.
The Jewish congregation has done services at Children's Beach in the past, just so that you know.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. And Maggie, you're up.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of today's meeting. My name is Maggie O'Reilly, and I am the Director of Development at the Athenaeum. And we put on, as part of our fundraising efforts, we have 2 special events each year that we hold. And for the last 13 years, one of those events has been our dance festival, which is our primary fundraising event. And then our second event that we hold is our cold turkey plunge, which we actually hold at Children's Beach. And in the past, the high school has been our venue for all of the years of the festival. It's been, a great venue for us. We're able to have 1,500 people across 2 nights attend our dance performances. And the way that the festival and the week has been structured in the past is that we hold free community outreach events in the beginning of the week leading up to a Friday and Saturday evening performances. And those performances have been available to the public on a ticketed basis. And then we also use it as a fundraiser and sell sponsorship opportunities and then host post-performance parties. This year, we are again rethinking what would be possible. And, thank you to Marina for all of her counsel thus far and, guiding us as to what might be possible come summer. So we're rethinking our festival, and what we are proposing is to hold some form of it, a condensed form of it, outdoors. And we have identified Children's as a potential location for a few reasons. It's being able to hold a cultural, an arts and cultural event downtown in the cultural district is appealing to us. Its accessibility to families. Also, it's already accessible based on the infrastructure that's in place there, and then its proximity to the Athenaeum as well. So what we would like to do is we would like to put up a stage on the lawn. We already own our flooring that we typically would lay down on the high school stage. And so we're going off of those dimensions, which is what I previously shared with DPW to see if that was even an option with the existing irrigation system, which they feel is doable. They would just guide us as to where the best location is. And the thought of putting down our own stage is we bring performers over to the island, and our stage would allow for more space for the performers to perform. It also then, if we had rehearsals in place, it wouldn't interfere with anything happening on the existing bandstand. And so the thought is that we would put down a stage and a tent covering the stage, and then we would have chair seating in the lawn. And we would figure out a way to rope off or sort of barricade the lawn to allow for a single access point so that we could be sure to have proper crowd control so that we could keep the numbers capped at, that 100 or the 150 mark that Marina mentioned today. So, that would we feel that chairs would be an easier way than just having people bring their own blankets or beach chairs. Preset chairs would allow us to distance the parties that are in attendance. We typically sell tickets to our dance performances. This year, we would propose having that be free and accessible to general admission tickets, so that would allow for the community events and obviously use of that space is so accessible. And so we would be looking to have it be free and open to the public. We would have a reserved amount of seats probably at each performance for our sponsors. And then we could either approach it on, there could be a ticketed sign up to again sort of anticipate how many people are interested and then have a wait list, or it could just be general admission coming to the performances, and then we cut it off once we're capped at that 100 mark. What we've considered is, I mentioned that in a typical year, we'd accommodate about 1,500 people to our performances. So knowing this year that those numbers will be reduced, we were proposing a potential matinee and then early evening performance across a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That would be ideal to be able to accommodate, more people to each performance. The performances would be that 100 cap would include our performers. It would include staff, volunteers. Each performance would run between 45 minutes to 60 minutes. So, if we proposed a matinee and an early evening, it would be, the times are certainly flexible and could be guided by your recommendations. I proposed for conversation's sake, like a 1:30 and a 5:30. The thought was if we did it prior to dusk, it would require, less setup needs. We wouldn't need lighting. We wouldn't need, additional setup equipment. We would like to have live music for the performances. What our artistic director has proposed is a string quartet that would play for the duration of the performance. And then when the performance was over, at 6:30 p.m. On the evenings that when we had subsequent performances the next day, those, we would wrap up and store things as needed. And then the Saturday evening after the final performance, with, guidance from Nantucket Tents, we could either tear down that evening, or we could do so the following morning in advance of any programming. The thought for additional the 6 potential performances is also in the event of inclement weather, we would likely just cancel whichever performance or performances were impacted by that weather. And we would hope that, we didn't see inclement weather across all 3 days impacting all performance potential. So that's the base, kind of the overview of what we are proposing. We are not looking to serve food or beverage. And I'm just running through if there's anything I missed. I did propose putting the setup happening early in the week so that our performers would have access to rehearsal time. And that, rehearsal time could certainly be coordinated, with the help of Janet and David to know what scheduling was happening. When we spoke, it was my understanding that most programming wraps up at Children's Beach by about 1 o'clock. But we could certainly arrange for rehearsal time so that it would not impact or deter from what would be typically scheduled at the bandstand. But that's the other component to it, is that we would be looking for the dancers to have the ability to rehearse on the stage prior to the performances. So I'm happy to pause here and take any questions.
Have you checked with the police or anything on this yet? This will take several police officers to keep keep this moving, traffic moving and everything there. So have you talked to them yet?
I have not spoken to them directly. That's something that Marina and I discussed, and the need for, you know, the police detail and kind of determining when I would probably go to them once we knew, you know, what number of performances across what number of days. But that's certainly something that I know we would need to have that detail secured.
Right, you really need to have that before you get a permit, because it would require police there for the.
And you know, the permit, Marina was kind enough to let me submit a permit, and even the application, and even since submitting that, you know, regulations have changed, and some of our ideas and thoughts have changed. So I recognize that that might need to be revised, and that we would need to be very nimble in our approach, you know, with the ability to scale this back should things, you know, change, or be able to scale, you know, from that originally proposed 100 to 150. I think regardless of what the regulations would be come summer, even if the numbers were to increase for outdoor, I think we would keep it at that, because with space restrictions, we want to be able to distance attendees.
The other thing is that when Park and Rec used to approve things like this, we used to ask the people if they go talk to the neighbors first, see what they think about it, and then follow up with your permit. But the neighbors sometimes get upset about things like this if they don't know about it first.
Okay.
So what I like about this, Maggie, and fellow board members, is that it sounds like you're providing free entertainment to the folks on Nantucket on a summer evening, on 2 summer evenings. Is that fair for me to say?
Yes.
You know, that's, you know, take obviously what Jack said, you want to at least let the neighbors know. And I assume that the music is not going to be overly loud. It'll be within some sort of reason. And what time does it end at night? 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock?
It would end by about 6:30.
Oh, okay. So no one's going to lose any sleep over this, right?
No, it would start at 5 for the evening performance. We would propose to start at 5:30, and the longest it would run would be 60 minutes. So the music would be done by 6:30, and the crowd, I would anticipate, would, you know, be filtering out by 7.
So your library is a great Nantucket institution, and you're providing free entertainment to the people of Nantucket on a summer evening, and hopefully it doesn't rain. And Marina's been monitoring this, so ultimately she will give you a permit if you meet all the, go ahead, Marina, go ahead.
I just want to clarify, once you review that event, it will go to events group committee that consists usually of fire department, police department, building department, and health department, and they will review it and they will give their feedback. And after that, because it's a new event for Children's Beach, most likely it would have to go to select board for approval.
Go ahead, Janet.
I want to say, as Director of Culture and Tourism and Manager of the Cultural District, that we are very much in support of this program and will modify whatever programming we offer at Children's Beach to allow this to happen if it gets approved. I think it's great to have this kind of activity in the district.
I agree. Now, do we need to make a motion equivalent to what you just recommended? Like, although we not approve it, we can support it? Is that what you'd like, Maggie?
I would love that.
Okay, would somebody like a motion to make a motion to approve Maggie's dance party, is it? What are we calling it? Dance festival.
I think what we should do is support it rather than approve it, because there's a lot of work to be done on it.
Yeah. So does anyone want to formulate a motion to that effect?
I think Maureen has something to say.
I have a couple of questions before we move on, please. How many pieces in the musical ensemble approximately? Like,
So we don't have that. Our artistic director is going to be working on that this spring. We don't have that completely finalized yet. In a typical year with the performance runs more like an hour and a half, and there's usually like 7 pieces. So I would imagine it's going to be something closer to like maybe 4.
wow, okay. And I was
5.
just trying to think of, if you're, say we're using today's number at 150, just working backwards as far as the actual number of people who will be able to attend, you know, once you subtract that security, you know, just staff, approximately how many of the tickets would be general admission out of the balance?
Yep. So if it was
Even a
if we were
percentage.
working, I'm sorry.
Even if it were just a percentage?
Sure. If we were working off of like the 150 number, about 2/3 would be general public.
Wow, that's quite a few.
Mhm.
Okay.
Because if we're able to offer, you know, if we're able to offer the matinee and evening option across the 3 days, then that allows for us to invite our sponsors to specific evenings and reserve a certain amount of tickets for the sponsors. And then I'm estimating right now that between staff and performers, that would be about 20 people, which then the remaining would be open to the public.
Okay. Thank you.
I
Okay.
just want to say that I'm going to refrain from voting on this, just so that the board knows.
Okay, does anybody want to formulate a motion?
Yeah, basically what we're saying is we're making a motion to support this, correct?
Yes, this event.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to support the dance festival to take place at Children's Beach.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Tom is in favor? Blair, you're in
Aye.
favor? Jack, okay. And Emma refrained, so, okay. So good luck, Maggie.
Thank you so much. If I could just ask one question. You know, Jack, you mentioned that seeking support from the neighborhood. And I'm just wondering if you all have recommendations of the best way to go about that, or how you've maybe seen that approached in past events. If
When
it's
we,
writing a letter to those addresses, if it's going sort of
yeah,
door
when
to
we
door, I'm just wondering your recommendation.
go knock on the doors,
Okay,
knock on the doors and take somebody with you, and that way you can make a little presentation to them.
okay,
Maybe put a flyer in some of the doors with a callback number so you can explain, you know, just a little note.
mhm,
Sure.
Aren't
Okay,
most
great.
of those homes of summer residences? I don't think there's anybody there right now.
Yeah.
Well, there are people there. The Klatzes live there year round.
Well, there must be in a butters list somewhere that you could send a letter to.
Yeah, you can also, I know for licensing, often you do a certified mail and have them send back the receipt so that you can kind of have proof that the homeowner received your letter, and, you know, ask them to respond to you if they have a problem with it.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's time, and I really appreciate your support of this initiative.
Good luck.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here, Maggie.
Okay, so the final agenda item is one that will always be on our agenda, given we're Parks and Rec, and that's security programming and maintenance. So Blair, do you have anything on meetings with users and the spring strategy to get the fields in order? Not that it's your job, I'm just interested in what you think.
I mean, everything's kind of geared up to start here. Most programs will begin on Monday. The turf field is really the first thing that will be accessed. And then, so, you know, you have the usual players that we discuss that are using the fields for youth programming, being lacrosse, Little League, and soccer. Each of those nonprofit entities, and some will begin a little later this season. And right now, basically kind of what we're waiting on for the grass fields is that soil temperature to hit the threshold of, a steady at above 51 degrees, so that sports teams can go out and use these fields without damaging the grass, which, as anyone who's been out there knows, it's probably in the best condition that it's been in a very long time, given that it's had some time to rest. So that's a positive. It's also a positive that programs are able to run and do so safely. I've spoken with all of the users, and they've employed their special requirements to make sure that they're following their umbrella organization's rules and policies, working with Nantucket Soccer Club and a couple other organizations to put together COVID screenings so that they can make sure that they have those in place beforehand. And then the DPW's already, gotten started on getting the fields ready. Little League over at Delta is looking like it's in some great shape. And I think it's great to see things coming back and organizations getting together and kids out and moving again. Jetty's tennis will start a little later this year. So the fall 2 season pushed the spring sports back. So that being the high school tennis team will run a little longer and start a little later, which is nice because tennis is not necessarily a spring sport for Massachusetts anyway. Starting the 3rd week in March is always posing difficulties to our fence, to our wind screens, and other things. So that's a positive. But yeah, everything's kind of come along, and I've just been communicating to those that are using the spaces. The one update I will say from the last meeting is I have to amend a statement that I previously made, which is that we don't necessarily know if and when we will be going into the NRD building. That's kind of contingent on several factors, being that things are a little more backed up than was originally anticipated. So that's just, say that again, Jack.
Okay, the one you and I had spoken about is that somebody needs to go out and look at that softball field at Tom Nevers, because it's just inviting a sprained or broken ankle or worse, or twisted knee, because of the crevices from the vandalism. So I don't know what the exposure is to the city issuing permits out there when it's in that condition.
Mhm.
So I would definitely make sure somebody takes a look at that.
Yeah. What I know we weren't able to connect because I was in that virtual conference for the past couple of days, but what do you mind just kind of expounding on that? What condition exactly?
Well,
and then I can
yeah, because it's I think somebody took a car on those fields again, because I was out there about a month ago, and it's in terrible shape. It's and I don't want to sound like an alarmist, but somebody's need to go out and take a look at it. It's significant amount of damage. To fix it properly is going to cost money. The fences are still down, but there is more damage. Somebody took a truck and just drove all over the place, not just the ball field, but everywhere. It's not good. And, as Vince mentioned, there's a lot of more and more people are using it for all the right reasons. And the people that use it for softball really depend on it.
Right.
And, they really enjoy it. They use it properly. If there's one thing we can do, it's make sure that our fields are usable. And right now that's not usable. So I think DPW has got to go out there sooner rather than later and assess what needs to get done to fix it, so somebody doesn't sprain their ankle in the outfield or break their ankle or twist their knee, because the crevices are that serious. It's not a little bump here and a little bump there. It's serious damage. And the whole infield has been destroyed.
It's no good. It's a shame that people do that. I will definitely relay the message to the DPW and have them take a look. I don't know haven't gotten anything yet, but I know that there is an interest group that's used the fields in years past, being the adult softball organization, and that, you know, if the guidelines permit, then they will likely want to be out there this summer.
Well, right
So,
now it
yeah.
should be condemned. Right now it should be condemned. And the damage goes all over the fields over there. They've done a real nasty job out there, whoever did it. But, you know, that field should not be used.
Yeah, that's a shame.
It is, because the folks that use it in, it's a great thing. It's a family thing, and they get together and on Sundays and Saturdays and at night. They use it all the time, and that's what it should be.
Right.
They use it to play softball, and now they can't.
It's a bummer.
So I don't want to keep everybody. We've been on for an hour and 20 minutes. So does anyone have anything else?
No, the only thing, Maureen, I have is I realized as I was logging on the meeting minutes from the past, and I'll just send you them collectively together.
Blair, what are we going to do with you? Just get them to me before the meeting so I can include them in the packet. People can take a look at them, and, you know, we can bring back any suggestions or recommendations.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor? Tom's in favor? Jack?
Aye.
Blair?
Aye.
Emma?
Yes.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.
And just